Welcome back to Finnegan's Garage. We are back to work on the C10, and we discovered something this week. The chassis is a little flimsy.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to fix that here today. Thanks for joining us. Do me a favor, please like this video, comment below, tell me what you think of it, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Also tell your friends, I'd appreciate it. Okay, here's the deal. We, a long time ago, built this truck. I'm talking like 07, back in California. And my friend Mike Kim, Brian Busby, a whole lot of other people got together, helped me bag and body drop my 67 C10. We laid it on the ground on 22s with a tube chassis, and we always intended to cage the truck and just never did it. Then I sold it, I got it back. At some point, the guys from MRC Fabrications came in here and we started building that cage. We built the main hoop, pillar bars, the knee bar, and we stopped and got busy going to drag week and working on blasphemy and all that, and we never finished the cage. Well, this week we were working on the truck and we realized that when you jack the truck up, because we never finished the cage, the chassis does this. So in this video, we're going to finish bracing that roll cage, and we're going to show you some brand new tools that I just bought that will help make figuring out the angles of your tubes and notching them a whole lot easier.
So I've seen people actually sand this entire piece and like smooth it out and damn near polish it before they even start working with it.
Yeah, there are guys, and like all of this tube is built to a spec, and if you're going racing, there's a spec for every tube, every diameter in the truck. A lot of them are like 095 wall, 083, 067. This is 1.75" 095 wall tubing, and guys like Jimmy Bullard will take the tube and have it ground before they ever do it to get it to the minimum thickness.
Really?
Yeah, like NASCAR, that's what they do. Every tube in those cars is ground until it's the minimum for the spec. Shave as much weight as you can. We are not doing that. But the tubing comes with a coating on it to keep the stuff from rusting. It's very oily, very greasy, and the second thing we need to do here is mark the center line of our tube, except we don't want to mark it, nor do we want to handle it, because this stuff is nasty. So, step one, wipe the tube down, man. Clean it off. Look at all that. All that came off. You don't want to weld on that. You don't want your Sharpie to get all contaminated. That doesn't sound fun. So we're just gonna take a little bit of acetone here and we're gonna wipe the stuff off. And if you work in a basement like I do, the smell of brake clean, that lingers a while, and your wife upstairs doesn't wanna smell it, so you use acetone because it doesn't last as long. And also, you don't wanna use brake clean in a lot of instances because a lot of it is chlorinated, and if you weld something you've cleaned with chlorinated brake clean, superheating the brake clean produces phosgene gas, which can poison you, destroy your nervous system, wreck you. So be really careful. Use anything that doesn't have chlorine in it to clean the stuff you're gonna weld.
I wonder if that's what's wrong with me from like earlier years in my life.
I think that's what's wrong with Cotton for sure. Maybe that's where he got the superpower to do the worm. He's like, oh yeah, that's it. He's like Spider-Man. Spider-Man gets bit by a radioactive spider, suddenly he can shoot webs. Cotton gets phosgene poisoning, then he can do the worm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand it. Like, he has a hard time getting up off the ground, but yet he can worm across the whole basement.
It's beautiful. All right, tube is clean. Now we can mark the center line of it. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can take the tube and just scrub it on the floor, and that will mark the very bottom of the tube, and that can be your center line. If you're working with a tube that has seam right down the middle of it, so let's just say a mild steel tube, there will be a seam down it. You can just use that as your center line. Or if you're working with something that doesn't have a seam like this DOM, we need to mark the center of the tube, and there is another way to do this. This is a tool from Centurial. This is a 3D printed bracket that does nothing more than hold a Sharpie, and it's adjustable in 1/8 inch increments from 1 to 2 inches. So this will do tubes all the way up to 4 inches in diameter. And so all I'm doing here is pointing it at the number 7, that's 7/8 of an inch, which is the center of an 1.75" tube. I'm gonna hold the tube down on the table, hold the tool down on the table, and we're just gonna do that. See that? I'm gonna come here, And this will mark the center of our tube. And you might as well go the whole way because we don't know how much of this tube we're going to need. It helps if you have a really good table. Ours is not. Yeah, I just screwed that all up. It helps if you do this on a level surface like a welding table and not a folding table, because we were good to go right there until I hit the kink in the table. Now we're not. So yeah, if you have a flat surface, use that tool. If you don't, just scrape this tube on the floor of the shop and basically get the same result. All right, next step. We got to figure out what our tube needs to look like. We've already marked the thing for center poorly, but don't worry about it. It'll all work out in the end. Now let's talk about what we're building. We need a strut bar from the firewall to this front frame horn. And that strut bar is going to be there to brace the front of the frame to the roll cage, which also contacts the firewall right there. This needs to be removable because in the end, this truck cab needs to be able to come off so that we can paint everything. Everything under the truck is raw metal. It's going to rust. So we're going to make this removable, and we have a sandwich plate bolted to the firewall. One end of the tube will go there. And then we have this tube adapter. This is from Trail Ready. This is a company that makes parts like this for fabricating stuff. We got these at summitracing.com. This tube adapter gets welded into your 1 3/4 tube or whatever size you're using and gives you the ability to separate the pieces after you've welded. See, it's just an Allen bolt there and an Allen bolt there. Take the 2 Allen bolts out, and this tube will pull out from the side, right? So if we unbolt the bolts from the firewall, unbolt the bolts here, we can remove our strut bars, but when they're in there, they're locked in solid. So what we're going to do is we are going to mock one of these up right here, because we already know this is where our tube needs to land. And then we can hold this in place with another product from Centurial. This is a magnetic tube holder. Think of it as another pair of hands. If you don't have somebody on hand to help you hold things while you weld them or mock them up or stare at them or whatever, that will do the job right there. Again, it's another 3D printed tool they make, and it holds it really well. You know, just enough for you to get a tack weld going or eyeball, you know, the angles that you need or the fitment. This will work. So now that that's there, we need to craft another tube that will go straight up past the alternator and shoot off over to the firewall. Here's our tube adapter. It's already been TIG welded into a tube. However, it is not clocked the way we'd like it to be clocked. You know, ideally the bolt would go this way or this way, not this way. We're going to cut this tube, shorten it, and make it so that this bolt satisfies my OCD. The problem is that frame rail is curved. It sits at an angle like this. We don't know what that angle is. So the easiest way to transfer that to this is to use another tool we bought in this giant kit from Centurial. And these, I don't know what they call them, but essentially it's kind of like a profile tool. You put all these pins in these pieces of plastic. Again, it looks like they've been 3D printed. And then you can use these to trace the angle of that and then slide it over the tube you want to shorten. And voila, you've transferred the angle and the shape from there to here. The other unique thing about these, beyond the fact that they've got them sizes from 2-inch all the way down to 3/4, if you buy the whole kit, is that they have this center that pops out and it actually holds a laser pointer. So you can take one of these, put all the pins in it, hold it on an angle you want down here on one tube, and aim the laser at the other side of your vehicle to where the other end of that tube needs to go and mark it accurately over there, which makes figuring out how long the tube needs to be and the angles it needs to sit at much easier, and you're going to save a lot of material. We're going to grab the 1 3/4 one, which is what we've got here. We don't need the laser just yet, so we're going to pop that out, and then we're just going to put the pins in. Our table is reasonably smooth, or at least smoother than the other one, and here we go. Much better. Okay. There is our center line with our bolt hole. So this is how it needs to go in the truck. We'll use a digital angle finder on top to make sure this is sitting 90 degrees to the firewall. And then we'll use the profile tool, slide it down this, and then that will show us what angle we have to recut this tube at. I like your idea. Zero this on the firewall.
Yeah, put that on your plate.
Put it over here on top and make sure it's 90. Mm-hmm. Shove that down, and whatever it is what it's...
That's your angle. Then transfer that right over to your pipe on your center line that you just made.
Yep.
Trace it, and it should get us in the ballpark.
Yes. Okay. You want to zero that? All right, so I'm going to use that 3D printed line right there as our center line.
Okay.
And then I'll let you get it 90.
Ooh. Yeah, you could... Is there a pin that lines up with that exactly? Because you could push that pin further out to mark, and you can mark it dead center on that. That way you can have a guide.
Good idea. Okay, but now we need you to put the angle finder on here to tell us whether we're actually 90 degrees. That's centered over this mark.
That's it right there.
All right. So now we transfer this to that. There's the center line of our piece. There's our template. Gently putting it in there so as not to disturb it. And you can see how different these angles are. This is what it was before. This is the angle we're about to put on it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there we go.
There's our angle.
Want to do the honors? Newbern killed it on the frame mounts. Those are some of his finest welds, actually. Now what we have to do is build our strut bars that will go from that tube adapter up over the alternator, welded to the mount that's on our firewall. And to do that, we are going to make a cheater bar with our tube bender, because this is the first time with this bender I've bent tubing this size before. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the center line of this tube, and then I'm going to mark it about every inch. And when I put it in here, we'll bend a 90-degree bend, and then every 10 degrees as we're bending it, we'll make more marks on this, so we can sit here and accurately know, okay, if I need to make a 45-degree bend or a 38-degree bend, whatever it is, we'll know how much tubing that takes in this given piece. And then later on, when we have to build something, we'll have a bar we can hold up there and cheat and figure out the angle based off that bar, but we'll also know where to start the bend and how much tubing it's going to take to make that specific angle bend. So just like before, we're going to stabilize our tube on a flat surface and mark the center line of our tube. And this is our reference point for everything we do going forward. This will be our start of bend, which will be right at the end of the follower of our die. So if that's where we start our bend, then every inch after that, we are going to mark. And then when we bend this in the tubing bender, every 10 degrees, we'll make a mark on the tube, and then we'll know how much tubing it takes to bend it a specific amount. And then you could just hang this tube on the wall and reference it every time we use 1 3/4 095 DOM. Let's bend some tube. First, let me tell you about this rig right here. This is a JMR tube bender. It is an electric over hydraulic bender, which means it's not manual. I'm not grabbing a bar and pulling it. It's got a hydraulic pump down there and a lever here that extends this hydraulic cylinder to move the arm to bend the tube. I got all the dies from tricktools.com. I buy a lot of my fab equipment from those guys. They kick butt. They have a great selection of stuff and pretty darn decent prices. This is our cheater tube. We have marked it every inch down the center line. And we're going to put it in here. We're going to align the start of our bend, which is where we put here, about 4 inches down the tube. We're going to align that with the very edge of the die, right there. And then we're going to clamp it in place. Tighten that down until it's snug so it doesn't slip. Then I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to preload this so that there's pressure on the tube. And then I'm going to use the indicator here and my pointer to set an actual 0, which is pressure on the tube right when it starts to bend it, not 0 right now with a bunch of slop in it. This is about to get loud. There we go. We now have pressure on it. So we can set this at 0. And now I'll extend the hydraulic ram, turn this to 10 degrees, and mark our tube. Ooh, went a little bit far. We'll come back here. 20 degrees. All right, that's 90 degrees. This is our cheater piece. And what we learned from this is 2 things. Tubing, when you bend it, has a rate of spring back. And this tubing, to get a true 90 degrees on a bend, which we can test right here with this right angle, we had to bend it an indicated 95 degrees on our bender. So this 1 3/4 095 wall tubing, we had to bend it 95 degrees and then it sprung back to give us a true 90. So we learned that. And then we learned that it takes about, there's our start of bend, 1 and 5/8 inches of tube for a 10 degree bend. And then it took 1, 2, and right about 2.5 to get a 20 degree bend. And so on and so on. So now what we can do, let's just say you're going to build a roll cage yourself in your car, right? And you're building the main hoop. You can take this piece, set it up in there against one of the pillars and go, okay, I need a 90 degree bend or I need less or whatever, but you have a visual representation and you have the math to tell you how much tubing it's going to take to get from here to here. And once you make one side of that hoop, you can flip this to the other side of the car and go, to duplicate that bend over there, here's my start of bend. You measure the distance between the start of the bend here on this side of the car, same thing on the other side, and you know how long to make the run of tube before you make your second bend. And that is the easiest way I know to bend the main hoop of a roll cage. Now we're going to take this info and translate it onto our fresh piece of tubing there and build our strut bar from there to there.
So before we would bend a pipe and I'd always just bend it long and then just cut off what I didn't need, you know, wasting material basically. So now we can put this up here exactly where we want it, make sure it clears everything, take a measurement from our start of bend down here to where we need it, and we know exactly how much material we need. Like, why didn't we do this before?
We hadn't watched the video on the internet from the fabricator guy.
So now we can hold this up here, get a measurement from here to here, then get a measurement from here to our firewall, and cut our pipe, bend it. This will fit the first time. I have faith.
Let's be clear. This is not our genius idea. We didn't invent this. We actually learned this from another YouTuber. I don't know the guy's name, but he's got a channel called The Fabricator or the Fabrication series. I forget which. We'll put a link in the description. But he taught us through one of his videos how to do that. And that is about to change our world. That and the tools we just bought. I think we get way faster at this now.
You ready for this?
I am ready for this.
I'm gonna let you know now that I didn't use up any material like this. I cut off nothing. All I did was put this angle in it. Yeah. That's it.
And did you use the sleeve over the tube to get the angle?
So I put an angle finder on it, measured the distance from our start of bend down to here. I got that angle, made sure it was on 0, put the laser in the end of it, made the center marks over there, got to measure it from the end of the pipe to there, and there you go.
You used the laser?
I did. Here you go.
I missed it.
There you go, dude.
That fits on there good, and boom.
I mean,
Dude.
It's perfect.
Yeah, dude, it's level too.
Yes.
This is removable. I forgot about this. Yeah, let's tack it. Put 4 tacks there, and then a couple of tacks here. Take it over there, and I'll take both ends of it, dude. And then later we'll do a strut bar.
It's like, so if we ever have to change this, we have room.
Yeah.
So like we can pull this off.
Yep. Cheater tube life. I'm
That's
all about
genius,
it,
man.
dude. I'm all about it.
Thank God. We finally bent a piece of tube right the first time.
I didn't. You did. I was upstairs. Now you gotta teach me to make sure I don't screw it up. Look at that. Fully welded on both sides. And not too bad. If I do say so myself.
Very nice. Very nice.
There's one spot on this one where, I don't know, something was going on. Like it didn't have any argon coverage. And it tried to blow a hole in the tube right there. I went over it again, but...
It's on the inside.
It's on the inside. Not everybody sees the inside, so I'm okay with it. Let's see if it still fits. That should go... Oh, dude, it just fell right into place. The reason we never built these bars to begin with was we weren't sure whether all the accessories were going to stay where they are, because we have a hydraulic steering rack. Late model Corvettes, which is what this engine came out of, don't have hydraulic steering racks. They have electric steering racks.
That's right.
Right. So we need electric power steering, or we need to figure out a way to add a power steering pump to the front of this motor. And we were worried that we were going to try to find something to put it here, but there was nothing on the aftermarket we could find. So I'm looking into like Mini Cooper or BMW electric power steering servo stuff to convert this thing. I forgot about all that until right now, and I'm fully committed to finishing this job. So let's just finish this job and then worry about the consequences later about having to fit a power steering pump in here, because there's already like disasters here. Like the AC compressor, the lines are pointing directly at the frame rail. So
I see that.
we already have to cut the frame rail here to get those lines to come through here, or move that, or I don't know. But
Okay.
I'm not worrying about that now.
I
Right now,
I never noticed that.
the truck is flimsy, so let's stiffen the truck up and then later figure out creature comforts after that. You know, like power steering and air conditioning. This is our cheater bar. We are now going to use it to figure out, with this 90-degree bend, how much material do we need to add on this end to get that tube to aim directly at our plate on our firewall. And more importantly, we are going to use the Centurial tube sleeve profile gauge to point a laser beam at the firewall, showing us we are at the exact right trajectory, and then the angle finder will tell us we're at the exact right angle. Then, after we cut this thing, the profile gauge will slide to the end of the tube without the laser pointer, touch the firewall, and tell us what angle we need to cut our tube off at. It's all very scientific. It works really good. We already made one side of this without burning through any extra tool.
None.
Like, no extra tubing wasted. All right, so you lift. I'll measure from here to here. And then you aim the target, and you get the angle right.
Okay.
You there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we need to add 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. Okay.
That's off the end of the pipe.
End of the pipe to here.
4 1/4.
4 1/4.
All right, let's write that down.
All right. We think we know how much tubing we need. We have our cheater bar here to compare it against when we get to that point where we bent it 90 degrees. And this should work. So we're putting pressure on it, taking the slack out, and then we'll zero our gauge. Ready? And then we'll bend it to 90 degrees. So 95 is our target, because we know it'll spring back to an actual 90. All right, so this piece, when we take it out, should be real close to what's gonna fit in that truck. if you look at our cheater bar, there's our 90-degree bend plus the material on this end that we needed to add to get it down to our chassis. So this should go right in there. That end totally fits. This end is in the ballpark. It needs to be swung this way onto our plate. However, it's too long, and we also need to cut it at the right angle. So I'm with you. I think shove it backwards.
Do just like that. Put our tool on there.
Yeah, hold it there.
Yep, get our angle.
And then done. Now on this profile gauge, there is a skinny end and a fat end. So this is the fat end, this is the skinny end, so that when you get down to the part where you want to move the needles and make your marks, you want to use this because it grips the tube tighter. Alright, so if you hold that, I will get us in line here. And this is how high it will be.
Get it straight.
That is in the ballpark of being straight, yes.
Okay, so I made a reference mark on our tube there. Then I'll mark this pin here. So all I need to do is slide this up on here. Follow that pin, just like that. Now we just trace. There you go.
Beautiful. All right. Cut it and install it. Look what we made! Doesn't it look like a race truck now? Look at that. It's gotta be stiffer than it was before. And yeah, we still have to do the rear part of the cage and the door bars and the harness bar, a whole bunch of stuff. But at least now we know how to use the tools, and we're way better than we were yesterday. We didn't waste a scrap of tubing to make this strut bar and that strut bar. And that's the point of this video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon. So we're gonna try to fix that here today. There's my kids. Or my wife. I can hear footsteps.
That's awfully fast. Got our measurement there. Wasted 0 material. Yeah, I set it up on 0, put the sleeve over it, shot it to there, measured off the end of that piece. Wasted 0. Dude.
I hope you filmed that. Like the whole laser thing and the...
We'll do it again.